Just in case you missed it, it's the top 5 sports talkers of the day. Now, it's time for Dan Barreiro's Top 5 at 5. Brought to you by Gutter Helmet of Minnesota. Never clean your gutters again. Learn more at gutterhelmetmn.com.
All right, it is Top 5 at 5 time. Don't forget, at the bottom of the hour, we'll check in with former Gopher quarterback and a pro quarterback as well. Rickie Foggie will ode Lou Holtz, the coach who recruited Foggie out of, I believe, South Carolina to University of Minnesota. Way back when. That's at the bottom of the hour. Right now, Top 5.
Time now for the obligatory Kevin Fallness Minnesota Wild mention.
So I did a double yesterday. I was with Nordo in the morning. I was with Guardsy in the afternoon. Not a complaint, just a statement. And I did these news bits. And I led the 9 to noon show. He said, what are you leading with? So probably Wild. And then he goes, let's go with Vikings. I got a text.
Ooh.
Then Guardsy. I got a text from Fallness. Then Guardsy. I'm like, well, I'm going to lead with Wild. Well, then the Lou Holtz news breaks. We got to lead with that. I received another text. So finally, we make right. We lead with the Wild, even though they don't even play today. They play tomorrow. They did make a trade, Jeff Petrie, for a 7th-round pick, essentially nothing. I think the biggest Wild news is what happens on the show at 4 o'clock with Russo saying, for more or less, the Wild are out of the Trocheck race. They've pulled themselves out. The price is too high. So Russo said that on this very program. That's where your Wild are out there in Vegas tomorrow. And they were on a flight when we were talking with Russo.
Now, I will caution what we talked about with Russo that, guess what? As you get closer and closer to the 2 p.m. Central trade deadline tomorrow, sometimes maybe teams are playing the game. All right, we're going to talk big. We're going to see what kind of action we get. And ultimately, we may know we're going to have to come back down in some of our demands. I don't think you can rule that out, but it is interesting. And look, you do have to be sensible about it, even if there's this, I think there's almost been this implicit notion that, well, you've got to give yourself the best chance to immediately maximize what Quinnesota represents. You can only do it if you find a partner and you can make a deal that you think you can live with as well. I wouldn't rule out a deal. I still wouldn't, because again, it's generally you get to the last few hours, that's when you really know teams that might be willing to deal a player you're interested in, what they will be willing to accept. There's no loss in the day before demanding more and getting a gauge of the market. Maybe somebody surprises you and said, yeah, all right, we'll give you that much. We're desperate enough. So I don't know what Louis, I asked Louis 0 to 10 chance that the team would make a deal. He put it as a 4 on Tuesday. And my guess is that's about where Russo would put it. And because that's still a little bit less likely than it is likely. But never underestimate Guerin to pull something out of the fire late, because I do think his antenna is up. I do think that he envisions this team as having a chance, despite having 0 playoff equity, to make a run this year. So, stay tuned. At least I think it's our antenna is going to be up, because it feels like there's something at stake, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to end up with a big fish.
Your Timberwolves host the Raptors tonight. You'll hear it right here on the Fan. Pregame 6:45, so a quick little FOD after we wrap up at 6:30. The injury report's out. Questionable once again. Anthony Edwards listed with right foot injury maintenance. So maybe we'll get a last-second flip to active. Jalen Clark is active, by the way, listed with available listed with illness. But maybe we'll get a last-second clear from Edwards, or maybe he'll be sitting out. We'll see. But that's where the injury report is. You'll hear all the action starting at 6:45 on the Fan.
Well, it certainly worked out the other night. I think he finished with 41.
Yeah, and it wasn't bad.
And they, that was a game where they were playing with their food, and it was, they were not in control start to finish. But when it turned, and he was outstanding. I've said this before, I'll say it again on Edwards. What's changed to me that is dramatic is the variety of ways to score. I think there have been times in his career where it was basically a couple of different ways he was going to score. Now, mid-range has been developed a little bit, I think, more resourceful, getting to the basket without necessarily having to kill himself to get there. showing more finesse to go along with the power. All that stuff is very good. They're in a stretch where you think there's every reason to believe they can keep and should keep winning, because it is all about, at this point, trying to at least get to the 4 spot. If you're lucky, perhaps even the number 3 position in the Western Conference.
The tourney is well underway over in St. Paul Grand Casino Arena, and I have something special lined up for you. I actually tracked down Zach Halverson to give us
Is
an
that
update.
right?
Yeah, for what's happened. A couple AA games happened. Let's listen.
Now let's head to the X for a high school hockey tournament update.
Well, let me make sure he's there. Hang on. I don't know if
thought he
he's
was there. Oh, he's not even ready yet? Zach, are you there yet? Did you find him?
I found him.
That's outstanding.
Hey, Zach, you
Sorry
there?
about that. Yeah, I was just in the press conference for Bruce Pland after their 6-5 victory over St. Cloud Cathedral, and they're obviously pretty happy. A heck of a hockey game, the second of 2 great games here at the X thus far. It sets up a Class A championship game tomorrow between Hermantown and Monticello Annandale Maple Lake. So, Guardsy, Barreiro, it's going to be a
Why don't
great
you catch
game.
your breath?
Yeah, I'm
Why
gonna
don't you
catch
head
my
to
breath here.
Trio?
Zach, are you all right?
I literally sprinted across the Al Saber press box.
Is there a medic at the XL Energy Center? Trio
great.
Orthopedic Center.
All right, we'll take over from here, and we'll get
Catch
back
your
to you a
breath.
little bit later. You catch your breath. We don't want,
I think I'm ready.
You think you're
I think
ready
I
now?
got
You think you
Yes,
can?
I think so.
All right, well, then
we got a
hold
couple
on, if you're not,
by the way, I
don't.
got an echo in my ear. If you could take that out.
He's got an echo is what he's going. Abbott. It's Abbott's fault that he's got an echo, probably.
Probably.
Double
gets
so
old,
there's
does it?
Halvey.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't. Guardsy really wanted me to play that today. So AA action today. Gentry Academy loses to Tonka 5-rip. I hope all the parents from Gentry have a safe flight home. Grand Rapids and Rosemount. They went into overtime. 3-2 Rosemount, your winner. You heard a brief listen in with Halvey there. So it'll be Tonka and Rosemount in the second round. And then later, so 6 o'clock, Lakeville South will take on Moorhead, the Spuds, defending champs. And then the late game, Andover and Edina, everyone's favorite. That's at 8. All of the action, Halvey will be on the call, KFAN Plus 96.7.
Yeah, I love that we've made that part of what we make available to people in the state of hockey. I will mention briefly, no sooner do I salute Nico Medved and the University of Minnesota men's basketball team for, if nothing else, hanging in, refusing to get blown out, occasionally winning games they're not supposed to win. What do? They go to Bloomington, Indiana, and they get blown out. I think it ended up being by 30. Indiana literally knew that if it didn't win that game at home after having lost to Northwestern at home, they weren't going to make the tournament. So they were clearly motivated. But nothing went right for Minnesota. And you could say to a certain extent, it just kind of caught up with them, that they are, shorthanded, that they don't have enough people, et cetera, et cetera. But this was part of the reason it stands out is it's been so rare for this team, even being overmatched most of the season, to be blown out the way they were in Bloomington, Indiana last night.
One more thing, we'll be able to ode Lou Holtz, who passed away yesterday, 89.
Yes.
But there's also breaking news of someone else who unfortunately passed away at the age of 89. You're familiar with Bob Harlan, a longtime Green Bay Packers president.
Yes.
Father to Kevin Harlan.
That's right.
And
Brian.
He passed away not too long ago
I
at
missed
the
that
age of
too.
89.
Wow, 80,
So-
a very good run for him. All right, we got, as Brett Blakemore mentioned, we got Tony Dungy, who played for Lou Holtz at the University of Minnesota. He's going to come up at the bottom of the hour. I've got some texts I want to explore, kind of reacting angrily to part of the
thing.
conversation with Mitch Lawrence. What you were saying?
I just saw this.
Yes.
If you're going to the Wolves game tonight, available Anthony Edwards.
It must be the new game they're playing,
Maybe.
just to get it, because it gets them 2 mentions every time on this show. The mention of questionable, and then the mention that, he's playing. So it's all good.
Funny.
Okay, maybe it's a marketing ploy of some sort. We'll get a quick pause in here, react to some texts, and prepare for Rickie Foggie at the bottom of the hour.
The Northwest Sports Show is back today, March 5th through the 8th at the Minneapolis Convention Center. You can find the latest fishing and outdoor gear, boats, RVs, and power sports, everything you need for the season. And you can join the fans Nordo tomorrow for a Friday night fish fry, 4 to 6 p.m. More details at KFAN.com. Keyword calendar.
One National Football League nugget that if we'd had room for the top 10 at 10 might have worked. The Chicago Bears making a deal.
Had it written down.
Trading a veteran wide receiver DJ Moore, who was very effective down the stretch, making that. Well, he made the winning catch against your club, right? The Packers?
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Yeah,
I know you don't like thinking about it.
Yeah.
They trade him to the Buffalo Bills, according to league sources. And it sounds as if the Bills are going to send a 2026 second-round pick and a 2026 fifth-round pick. I think this is one of those sneaky, really good moves by an ascending team, the Bears. I really do, because I think Moore, big contract. I also think that as good as he was at times last year, I don't think he was consistently as good as he's once been. They've got some good young receivers and second round pick. And now basically that's allegedly what we want, right? For Grenard. And by the way, the Jackals continue to say that there's a better than 50-50 chance that Grenard will be traded and that the Vikings aren't particularly happy about having to do it, but they feel like they're going to be semi-forced into it. There does seem to be a big market for him. That's the good news. So the assumption is you're going to be able to get something significant for him, even though I think it's a bad sign that they're in the position they're in, that they have to do it at all, even if he's asking for a, shall we say, a contract adjustment after a season that statistically was not as productive as the year before. But the DJ Moore move, and it probably does help the Bills to add a receiver of Moore's overall productivity and savvy and experience. So one of those trades, proverbial trades that might end up helping, as we say in the business, both clubs.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Are you okay with calling the team the Gary Berries? Would you be open to that?
I have no problem with that.
Yeah.
That's so. All that stuff has kind of slowed down.
It
right?
has.
So that must.
But it hasn't been resolved.
No, it hasn't. But that must mean Illinois is making a move. That's all I can think
maybe.
of. But who's to say?
Yeah.
All right. Where were? Here's the other item. So officiating is such a dangerous. NBA officiating, especially, is such a dangerous subject to discuss because people have a really hard time separating their allegiances from the discussion. And my team gets screwed, and I always get jobbed. And I'm by the way, and if you're told this over and over on TV, it's not particularly surprising that might be the way you indeed feel. And I had a texter who was just insulted by the discussion with Mitch regarding the play in question against, I think it was Denver, where Anthony Edwards got called for an offensive foul. And I talked about, I think, the mistake he made to make it makeable was the extension of the arm. And somebody said, what are you talking about extent? What world are we living in? And all I can say to that person and to others is you can live in a lab experiment or you can live in the real world. It's your choice. But these games aren't played in a lab. They're not a lab experiment. They are games officiated by human beings. And if you think the notion of being clever about how you cheat is new or radical, you haven't been paying attention. Because I'll say again, part of being effective as a player, as an offensive player or a defensive player, is how you learn to get away with as much as you can. I don't mean dirty plays. I just mean physicality without being called for a foul. There's an art to it. You can pretend there isn't, but there is. And that's part of what this discussion is about. And it's not new. It's been going on. I started covering the NBA on a regular basis probably 1982 or 83. And you learn that that's sort of the way the game is played. Now, you can even say it's true of any sport. The ability to attract penalties, the ability to attract pass interference calls, whatever the case, there is an art to it. Is that seem unfair? Does it make it sound like you're cheating? No, I would say no. I would say just being artful about attracting attention that might end up working for you. And whether, again, you're talking about an offensive player and extending an arm or a defensive player knowing how to create pressure and contact in a more subtle fashion where it's tougher for the ref to make a call, that is part of maturing as an NBA player. It just is. You can say that's silly, but I will tell you haven't been paying attention to the way the game has been officiated and called forever. Now, does that mean there aren't inconsistencies? No. There certainly can be. Within a game, does it seem like some players are protected more than others? Yes. But part of what happens is it's not just about the player being good. It's about the player, again, being smart about how he attracts the calls. And the extension part, you can hear any analyst talk about that over and over again, that the more we talk about this in football all the time, right? If you're a receiver and you're jostling for position and getting physical with the DB and maybe even creating some distance, chances are, if you are seen as extending your arm in a more exaggerated fashion, you're going to end up getting called for it. That's real life. So you can hate it. You can say, well, that's what I don't like about officiating. That's what I like about the game. I'm here to tell you might not be wrong, but I'm also here to tell you in the real world, it's not going away. It's never going to go away. So therefore, the choices are continue to be frustrated by it and continue to get calls against you, or become a little bit more subtle and a little bit more clever about how you create space for yourself. That can be true on a football field, and every bit is true on a basketball court as well. Every sport has its tricks. We've talked about this with Louis in hockey as well. It is all part of how you become a good player can become a great player as well. And I know you tend to remember the calls that go against you and they're inconsistent. And why do they do this? Does my team get penalized and the other team does not get penalized? We get all of that. It's ongoing. It's not going to go away. But the decision is, how do I give myself the best chance to get a greater percentage of those calls? And that's part of the game. It just is. And I think when your allegiance to a team blinds you, it's difficult to understand that or to accept it. And you don't have to. But I'm here to tell you, here's how you give your team a better chance to get a higher percentage of those calls. And that is being a little bit more subtle. And that doesn't mean any one individual call isn't wrong. We see wrong calls made every game in any sport. We sometimes see them overturned. Sometimes we do not see them overturned. Let's get a bottom of the hour break now. It's been a long time since we've chatted on this show with Rickie Foggie, who once upon a time was brought here basically to play quarterback for Lou Holtz. And Lou didn't stay very long. We're going to talk about Rickie, about how he feels about that. I know he has very strong feelings of the coaching approach that Lou Holtz took, the story breaking, yesterday that he had passed away. So we'll catch up with him on his memories, his experiences, what he learned from a coaching legend. There's not much question about that when we come back right here on The Fan. Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line is open. If you also have questions for him, 646-86.
If you want to chime in what's happening to your favorite KFAN shows, you can. You make your voice heard on the Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line. Just let us know what you have to say by texting your message to 64686. That is 64686. Standard text message and data rates apply.
News breaking yesterday that legendary college football coach Lou Holtz had passed away. And we're pleased to be joined, although not certainly pleased with the circumstances, but always pleased to be joined by Rickie Foggie, who came to Minnesota to be coached, to play quarterback for Lou Holtz in the mid-'80s. He's kind enough to join us via the Connecticut Water Systems hotline. Rickie, how are you, sir?
I'm doing pretty well, and thanks for having me on.
It's good to have you on. It's been too long since you've been on the show. Always had great respect for you, as you know. So tell me the last time you had a conversation with your former coach, Lou Holtz.
Yeah, it was actually pretty good. We, Melvin Anderson, who was my wide receiver with the Gophers, actually had a Gopher football reunion at his training facility out in over North Minneapolis. And so we had about a group of 25 to 30 guys probably showed up, and ended up having Coach Holtz over Zoom, and we had him up on the big screen. And the most interesting thing about that, talking to him that day, was every person in that room had an opportunity to go and say hi to Coach Holtz, and, you know, he may say a couple of words. And the thing was that I figured he would know who I was, but he knew every guy and called their first and last name that came in front of that camera. So that's just amazing, and that's just one of the attributes that Coach Holtz had. His mind was just weirdly crazy.
That was how many years ago, would you say?
That was 2 years ago.
2 years ago. Okay, exactly. You know, I'm curious. I'm sure you've told the story before, and I may even know it and have forgotten it, but tell the story about how he recruited you, what that period was like, whether you were ever close to going anyplace else. How did he get you to come to the University of Minnesota?
Yeah, it was pretty interesting. I was actually getting recruited by Coach John Palermo, and he was at East Carolina. And so Coach Palermo was close to my hometown, South Carolina. And so he was recruiting me, and I was being heavily recruited by the University of North Carolina, the Tar Heels. And so the bottom line was it basically came down to I still remember Coach Evans to this day at the University of North Carolina. And I told him on my recruiting trip, I go, if you take me to a basketball game, let me meet Michael Jordan, let me get an autograph, I'm coming. So he did. On my recruiting trip, he did those things. So I go back home, I tell my mom, I go, Mom, you know what? I'm going to Carolina. She goes, that's fine, but I want you to take a visit to Minnesota. Coach Palermo wants you to come up, you know, see the city, see the campus, and see if they still got a shot. And I go, okay, I can do that. But little did I know, Coach Palermo was recruiting my mom. He had got to her. And so I came up, I met Coach Holtz, I had a great time on my visit, go back home and tell Mom, you know, I still want to go to Carolina, because secretly I was a huge Michael Jordan fan. That spring, Jordan declared for the NBA. So I asked my mom, I go, Mom, you think you can call Coach Palermo and see if he'll still take me to Minnesota? So she did, and Coach Palermo was like, heck yeah, you know, we'll come on up. And so thank you, Michael Jordan, for going to the NBA, because it was definitely the right decision to come to the University of Minnesota.
That's I did not know, either didn't know that story or forgot it. That is a that. So if Mike had hung around, you might you might still we might not ever get to know you here in Minnesota.
That's exactly right, because in my mind, right, I thought I was going to be Mike's buddy.
Yeah.
Probably wouldn't have happened, but, you know, yeah, I was, 17, 18-year-old kid at that time to be able to meet a guy like Michael Jordan.
Sure.
But, yeah, thanks to Mike, I was able to become a Gopher.
So when you got to know Lou and work with him, because, it's to be the quarterback at a place that, man, had not had a lot of success, at least recently by that point. What were your early impressions of him? What stood out to you?
Well, when Coach Palermo brought me up, he said that I was going to get the opportunity to play quarterback, right? So I was a pretty good athlete coming out of high school. And so I didn't really get a lot of interaction with Coach Holtz like the first week I was here, because they moved me to wide receiver. Then they tried me at defensive back. Then they tried me at running back. And then the second week is when I went and had a little talk with Coach Holtz to ask him if he was going to give me an opportunity to play quarterback. And he said he would. And so from that point on, I was actually number 5 on the depth chart. Going into about a week to go to our first game at Purdue. So I went from 5 to number 2 behind Brett Sadak. And in the second half of that Purdue game, Coach Host installed me as a starter. And so never let it go for 4 years. But Coach Host's biggest thing that I always took from him was preparation, right? His pet peeve was mental and physical preparation on and off the football field. If you got to talk to Coach Host in his office, he didn't really talk about football a whole lot. He sat you down and he talked about life. And he was kind of a guy that could foretell the future. And being a young kid at that time, you started to see some of these things happen. That's how he got guys to buy in. That's how he got our team to buy in, because in 1983, the Gophers was 1-10. I think Nebraska put up 85 on them.
Yeah,
and so you
take
that pretty much that same team, and me and Gary Couch from Davenport, Iowa, we was the only 2 guys that did the red shirt in our class, and we had Oklahoma on the ropes, and they was the number 2 team in the nation, and they beat us 13-7.
Remember that? Yep.
So, we went 4-7 the '84 season, ended up beating an Iowa team that went to the Rose Bowl. So he, day one, had put his stamp on our football team, and everybody bought into it.
No question. In fact, I was reminded, I think Patrick Royce wrote about this, I think you talked to as well, that spring games, there were like 30,000 people, which, again, in the South, even today is no big deal. But in Minnesota, then, especially given the depths that the program had fallen to, I mean, that spoke to the energy and optimism that Holtz seemed to bring, correct?
Yeah, there's no question. I mean, the guy could motivate a dead man to get up and play. I'm being serious. Like, that was one of the things that was about him, was like he was sharp. He was not only football sharp, he could read people. And Coach Holtz wasn't afraid to play guys that could change his program. And so you look at in the mid-'80s, from '84 to '87, there were maybe 2 or 3 black quarterbacks in NCAA football. And not only did he let me play here at Minnesota, but he even let Tony Rice play at the University of Notre Dame. And so he wasn't afraid to push the edges, because he knew what it took to win. Like, his whole thing was he's going to put the right guys in the right positions to help turn the program around quickly, right? And so and you also have to realize his assistants. Like, the staff that he had on our Gopher football team was outstanding.
We are chatting with former Gopher quarterback Rickie Foggie, who played, of course, under Lou Holtz. You mentioned Carolina. Was Carolina were they going to give you a chance to compete at the quarterback position?
No chance.
Yeah.
They was recruiting me as an athlete at North Carolina, and and probably the 3 or 4 or 5 other schools I was being recruited in the South also was doing the same thing, was pretty much recruiting me as an athlete, because, like I said, I thought I had a shot when Homer Jordan won a national championship with Clemson in 1983, because that was right in my backyard. And lo and behold, Dan Ford didn't even recruit me to go to Clemson. So that's why it was bittersweet for me in 1985 when we beat them in the Independence Bowl.
That's right. That's true. That's a good point. Nice little revenge is best served cold. That's what they say, I think. So
yes, sir.
What do you remember, Rickie, about the Holtz departure? I mean, just give me your sense of sort of how that started percolating, and whether you felt betrayed, if you felt devastated. What do you remember about that whole period?
You know what? It kind of just happened, right? So we finished our last game against Iowa. I can't remember if we was down there or at home. And so then from that, we was prepping for the bowl game, right? So we was prepping for the Independence Bowl, and all of a sudden, Coach Holtz was gone. And so if there was no send-off, like he didn't come in and say, hey, guys, you know, I'm taking this Notre Dame job. You know, I appreciate your loyalty, your hard work, and all that good stuff. They just came in and said Coach Gutekunst was taking over.
Wow.
I think the best thing about it for me was that my offensive coordinator and quarterback coach, and he was like a dad to me, Coach Larry Beckish. He stayed. Like the whole staff stayed. And the only person he took with him was the recruiting coordinator, Benny Serrato, and he also took Tony Rice because we had Tony coming to Minnesota. So I think that was more confident for us as a football team, and for me, and you know, like I say, having Coach Beckish stay, Coach Palermo, the guy who recruited me, he stayed, and so no, we was devastated that Coach Holtz left. Don't get me wrong, because this thing was turning. You know what he did at Notre Dame, he probably was going to do at Minnesota, and so yeah, we was heartbroken, we was hurt, we was devastated. Because we seen the work that he was doing to this football program, and it was coming together. And so it was disappointing, but you know, like I said, we had our assistant coaches to fall back on, and they took care of us.
Did you ever in later years, sometime after that, where there's less emotion attached to it? Did you ever talk to him about it? I mean, because most coaches, I think in that situation, it's very awkward. It can be very uncomfortable, but I think most coaches do try to say goodbye. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's 50-50. I don't know. But did you ever get a sense about why he did it the way he did it without at least saying, hey, look, I know this is too fast, but it's Notre Dame, and I'm going to do it? I mean, did you ever talk to him about that or ever get a sense of why he took the approach he did then?
No, I personally never got to talk to him one-on-one on why he did that. But in that Zoom call, when we had our reunion, he pretty much said, when he was at Arkansas, I don't know if I'm getting this story right or not, but he had a athletic director that told him if he ever got the AD job at Notre Dame, he was going to bring him. He was going to get Coach Holtz to come there. And so I believe that's what happened. Like the AD got the job at Notre Dame, and after that 85 season, you know, Coach Holtz, you know, had a winning season and took us to a bowl game, but he didn't coach. So that was the time for him to go. And so, I mean, nobody can be upset with Coach Holtz about making that decision. I mean, if I had to at that stage to have an opportunity to go to a bigger, prestigious university like Notre Dame, I'm pretty sure I would have took it also. So, you know, as you get older, like you understand, like if you've been around football long enough, you don't get those opportunities to coach at those schools. And so that one popped up for him, and he had to go for it.
Yeah, I think that's a mature way to look at it, and I think you're right in the end. But it is interesting to hear you talk about projecting, because you know very well the history of football at the University of Minnesota once he left, right? There were a lot of hiccups before it finally seems to have stabilized, and I guess that's the old thing. You'll never know, but I believe you when you say there is reason to think that at the very least the program would be on the map. Now, whether it goes to national championship aspirations, who knows? But that's the great unknown, right? We'll never know, unfortunately.
It is, and because if the thing is, the way that they recruited, right? The way that they recruited was what changed programs around. So he was getting, and he always said this. He goes, "I'm gonna get my athletes from the South, and I'll get my big guys from the Midwest, but I'm gonna get all of my athletes from the South, and those are the guys that changed the game." And so even in 1986, we went to Michigan and beat them, with Coach Gutekunst.
Right.
So we can all just imagine, right? And they was the number 2 team in the nation. So we can all imagine if Coach Holtz was still there into his 3rd season, and then you just have to step back and go, well, he wasn't there.
Yeah, no,
you take it for what it is, right?
Well, it's funny because if you go back to the glory years of the early '60s, as I'm sure you well know, the University of Minnesota with Murray Warmath, one of the things, and we've talked about some of the players about that. One of the ways they succeeded was they recruited the South successfully. They recruited, guess what? Black players who didn't have the chance, even if they wanted to stay in the South, or perhaps didn't want to, and so there was a more of a willingness here, obviously, to not worry about that nonsense and the color line, and that's part of what elevated that program to national championship status back in the beginning of the '60s.
Yeah, I guess there is something to say about the brothers in the South. No, but it's true. It's true, and some coaches are willing to. To be able to recruit that area, especially back in those days.
Yes.
It was hard, right? It wasn't easy. It was hard. So it just took coaches that had a vision, didn't care, and they knew that they could handle it, right? Coach Holtz, he knew he could handle the color barrier.
No
if
question.
You just talked to Coach Holtz, you knew this guy didn't care anything about color, right? He didn't care anything about race. What he cared about was you as a person, and he cared about his football program. And he wasn't going to let anything come in between those two things. And that's one thing that I love about Coach Holtz. I've been able to spend time in his office with him on more than one occasion. And the guy was phenomenal. Like, he's left a lasting impression on my life, not only from a football standpoint, but just from a personal standpoint, to where when I became a coach in high school, 90% of what I did, I learned from Coach Holtz. And it wasn't even X's and O's. It was getting to know your players. And you have to figure out what they can and what they cannot do and build your program and your success around your players.
He's of course always been going to be remembered for his motivational speeches, including many that he gave to businesses after he stopped coaching. Do you have is there a favorite Lou Holtz motivational speech that you remember from college? Going in any particular game? What do you remember about the Lou Holtz speech?
It's too many to tell, but I do have a favorite. Okay, so we're playing Purdue in 1985, and Jim Everett is their quarterback.
Mm.
He's chunking the ball all over the field, probably averaging at least 300 yards a game, and they're probably scoring 30 to 40 points a game. And it's a Wednesday, and we're sitting watching the film as a team. And the film study's over. Coach Holtz gets up. He goes, "We'll beat this team by 30," and walks out. And so we're looking around like, okay, did he just watch the same film we're watching? They just put up 40 points. I think we beat them 45-17.
Wow.
We kept Jim Everett on the bench. We ball controlled him. And so if Coach Holtz is telling you this on Wednesday and it happens on Saturday, it ends up happening, well, he gonna tell you anything, you're gonna believe it, right? So that's his thing. He came in the locker room one time at halftime, and I don't remember who was playing. It was a non-conference game. He runs in, and he has his vanilla folder, which he always kept in his back pocket. And he runs in and he's screaming, I told you guys this was going to be the score at halftime. And it was like 21-0. And he's showing us on his vanilla folder. And he could have wrote it up right before he walked in. We didn't know.
Right.
But we believed it, right? So those are the type of things that he did to get us prepared for every game. Like, he did this every week in and week out. And on Fridays, this was one of his biggest deals. So on Friday, on our walkthrough, he would have every player lay down on the field, and we're going to meditate. So what Coach Holtz would do, he would walk around, and he would go over every situation in a football game. And when he's done, he'd say, okay, guys, get up. You just played the game for tomorrow. Now just go out and have fun.
Those are great memories,
and
man.
That's mental preparation.
Yeah.
Like, Coach Holtz was special. Like, the big man made one Coach Holtz, and he was like, all right, this is going to be good. He made one of Coach Holtz. And he's left a legacy in 2 short years at the University of Minnesota that has lasted a lifetime for us. He told us, because they worked with the Fortune 500s back then,
Yep.
and back in the mid-'80s as boosters, he told our recruiting class in '84, he goes, if you guys play here for 4 years, he goes, you'll be here for 40. And I think it's been, 42 for me now?
That's right. It's interesting to hear you say. What comes across more than anything else, again, is it's been a long time, right? Like you said, you're talking about 40-some years ago, and it sounds like you could tell a million more of these stories like each of them happened to you or you were a part of them yesterday.
Oh, we can be on here all day. No question. I mean, the things that he shared, right? And so that's another great thing about Coach Holtz. Like, he shared stuff with us. Like, he had stories from when he was growing up. He had stories when he was coaching other teams, and he shared those things with us. But the bottom line that I think we all took from Coach Holtz in that little short period of time is, don't forget who you are, be who you are, and make the next guy to you special also. Take care of your teammates. Like, he was a caring coach, right? He wasn't an I guy. Like, Coach Holtz it wasn't all about him. He wasn't an I guy. He cared 100% about his players, his coaching staff, the water boys, the equipment manager, medical staff. He cared about the secretary. He cared about everybody. And so everybody was involved. Everybody was on board. And the bottom line was, like, everybody was on the same page, because you can't take a 1-10 team in 83 and to 84 and 85. I think we went 7-4 and 85. I might be wrong, but that is hard to do, because Big Ten back then, like, you didn't have to play the non-conference game. Like, Big Ten was tough, and so the only thing I can say, he was special. Like, he's one of the guys that God made, and he was just going to be that guy that was going to be special.
Well, what also occurs to me as you talk about him, Rickie, is, again, at the time that he left, it had to hurt, it had to be stunning, and yet what stays with you isn't that. What stays with you is the other stuff, the nourishment you think you got from him, and just your own experiences on a much more positive level, despite the fact that it had to, be devastating when he walked away. But this is the stuff that has stayed with you.
Yeah, because, he gave me an opportunity. Like,
yeah,
he gave me an opportunity to play quarterback in the mid-'80s at a predominantly all-white university, right?
True.
And so only black folks we seen was the basketball team and our teammates on the football team. And so being a black quarterback, and I've never hopped on that, because that's not the way I was raised. Like, give me an opportunity, I can show you I can play. And Coach Oates did that. And I think at the end of the day, it worked out for both of us. And the one thing he always told me when I did talk to him, he would go, Rickie, if it wasn't for you, son, I wouldn't have got that job at the University of Notre Dame. And all what I would tell him, I'm like, so, well, you could give me a little kickback. But, no, that's just the appreciation I have for him. Like, he gave me an opportunity to play. He knew I could play. He's seen it in me. He would always tell me, he goes, you can't throw worth a darn, but just something about you.
Make plays, right? That was the deal. That's what he understood about the game. It's just making enough plays to win. Well, have you ever thought about, all right, what your college career might have been like if he'd stayed there? Now, you mentioned you had a lot of the people that you still respected, but again, Holtz is Holtz, man. Goody, was fine, but it's Lou Holtz.
Well, I got a glimpse of it, right? And so the thing is that when Coach Holtz left, right? And like you say, Coach Goody, Coach Goody did a good job, and he was fine. But you're talking two different personalities, right?
For sure.
So
yep.
Coach Holtz was the fiery guy, small in stature, and nobody even think about taking him bait because he would chew you out in a heartbeat. But his personality drew in businesses. His personality brought in crowds to the Metrodome to where 58 to 60,000 fans at our home games, and his personality was able to allow him to recruit the kind of athletes that he wanted to recruit. And so, no, like my freshman and sophomore year, like it was awesome under Coach Holtz. And so I think my career would have kept ascending. I think I had a pretty good college career overall.
Yep.
But I think as a team, I think that we would have got more wins for sure under Coach Holtz. He would have continued to recruit, and he would have continued to get better players for his football program. So there's no question, and who knows if we would have won the Big Ten title? Who knows, right? And so that's another unknown. That's what we was chasing. And so in his second year, we got the 7 wins. If he stays and he's still recruiting the way he does,
yeah, for sure.
It's just hard. So we just don't know.
A side note with him, he has sort of gotten blamed for the Gophers recommitting, University of Minnesota recommitting to playing Gopher games in the Metrodome, a building that, as I'm sure you know, Glenn Mason, a weekly guest on this show, despised, just said he just couldn't stand it. What do you remember about that? Is that true? Because I think he basically testified that, no, this is that our players want to play or in the Metrodome. And shortly thereafter, I think there was a vote to sort of commit for a much longer period of time to sort of recommit to the Dome. Do you remember anything about all that?
No, I don't, but that was another recruiting tool, right? From the guys from the South.
Yeah.
And so when I came, they took me to the indoor practice facility. Check, that's a win. You got to practice outside. They took me to the Metrodome.
Yeah.
Well, that's another check. I got to play inside. And they showed us when we were walking around on campus is that they have underground tunnels to where you can go to school, get to the different buildings,
right?
If you need to, if it's too cold. Well, that's check for me.
Yeah.
And then as an option quarterback, well, what better place for you to run?
Yeah.
Indoor on turf. And we walk out on that field, and there's 58 to 60,000 people indoors. We loved it.
Yeah.
I didn't know one player on our football team who was playing at the Metrodome ever complained.
Yeah.
I know I didn't. I enjoyed the Metrodome. I had a blast playing in front of that crowd.
That is interesting because the perception changed so much over the years for sure. We are chatting with former Gopher quarterback Rickie Foggie. Do you remember one of the first times you and I chatted and where it was?
You know I'm 59, don't you?
Well, I'm a lot older than that, to tell you the truth. It was in Memphis, Tennessee. This was before the Liberty Bowl. And I asked you I had just made a visit to the Lorraine Motel, where, of course, MLK had been assassinated, with the idea of writing a column about, spending some time on that ground and then talking to a couple of players about, that sad part of Memphis's history. And it's one of the first times you and I chatted, and we had a good, as I recall, a really good conversation about that because, there's not the point of the column was that location wasn't going to be on the tour despite its historic importance, I guess, for the obvious reasons that if you're bringing people in for bowl games, they don't want to have to think about those sorts of things. But I got to tell you, man, it was very moving to be in that location. It was sad to think about, but it was also very educational to spend some time there. And that's one of the first times we talked.
Yeah, like I said, I'm 59, right?
I do
remember. I do remember. Isn't that where Elvis grew up at?
Correct.
And we went to his house, we went on his plane. I do remember that about Memphis.
Yeah.
Because I grew up a huge Elvis fan.
Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I remember something about that as well. And by the way, they've actually since then they've made it more of a museum there. It's actually a lot better set up. They got good funding, and it's very tough place given the momentous history that is involved there. But it was very educational for me for sure. It's great to catch.
I'm gonna have to put that on my bucket list.
Yeah, it's not easy. There's because it's nothing but tough. But it moved me, just sort of going through there, and you could just feel the history and how history turned in terms of the civil rights movement, because obviously no one has ever been able to replace that legend. No one's ever been able to come close to what he represented. It's really good to catch up with you. It definitely enjoyed the stories. I got to give my regular producer, Justin Gard, credit. I should have thought of it, and I didn't. He did, and I had been out yesterday, so I was kind of out of the loop. And he said, "Hey, would you be willing to have Rickie Foggie on?" I said, "Hell yeah! It's been way too long since we've had him on." And so you've given us a lot of insight, some great memories as well into what Lou represented to you and what he meant to you.
Yeah, leave it to Justin to come through for us. And I just want to say in closing that it really was. It was one of those things that you go through in life, and a person, or coach, or friend, or somebody that comes along, and you just know that they're different. And that was Coach Holtz. And that's why I'm so blessed that he touched us for 2 years. Like those 2 years will last me a lifetime. Like, it seriously will. And this guy installed in our football team the heart of a lion. And he taught us how to just go out, play hard, play together, be a team, and love each other. And that was his whole thing. Trust, love, and care. And so I appreciate Coach Holtz for that. We know he's rested in heaven. And he did a fine job when he was here on earth.
Well, you've done a great job humanizing him, because I got a text a little bit earlier from texter Todd who maybe, is a little younger and didn't know all the whole stuff. In fact, he wrote, he was just always, for me, kind of a goofy old guy on TV who talked funny. It's really eye-opening and worth it to listen to what Rickie's had to say, painting this picture, because obviously there's a lot more to him. So you've done a great job with that. I appreciate your generosity in terms of how the time today. And as I said, I hope you're doing well. It's always good to hear your voice.
Hey, thanks, Dan, and I'm doing just fine. Waiting for golf season.
There you go. It's coming. It's coming. Thanks again.
Yes, sir.
Take care.
Take care.
Former Golden Gopher quarterback Rickie Foggie with outstanding insight and memories on the late Lou Holtz, a legendary coach. Stay tuned. Brett Blakemore, what kind of trouble are you wanting to cause here? You posted this a couple hours ago. I can't stand the full ice skate to the student section. What's wrong with you?
Do you like it?
I don't know that I've given it as much thought as you had, to be honest with you.
So they do that intentionally. They make it so in the first and third period, you attack away from your student section. So that way you have to skate 200 feet to the other side of the ice to celebrate your student section. And you watch the kids in the tournament, and they're so tired, and they're skating hard, and they score, and then they sprint down as fast as they humanly can.
Why can't you have fun? Let the kids have some fun.
I'm not anti-fun.
Oh.
I'm the opposite way. Let them just celebrate anywhere. Get rid of this sportsmanship penalty. God forbid you can't celebrate in front of the other school student section. Give me a break. Grow up and let them have fun.
I think it's a subject we can expand upon and maybe have some fun with tomorrow. But I am woefully behind because we went long after our Rickie Foggie, or during our Rickie Foggie conversation, because it was so good. So let's do this. Let's break again. We'll come back, wrap up the show, and let you know what we have coming up tomorrow, what you might have missed earlier in a very busy program.
It's the Bumper to Bumper Show Wrap.
It's brought to you by American Pressure.
Well, let me add to at least my thanks to regular producer Guardsy on the Rickie Foggie get. I've been reminded by him that the inspiration was Chad Abbott, the always thinking programming director of the Fan. So we thank Chad Abbott as well. And again, when I first got to town late in '86, he was here, obviously. Foggie was here. And I always enjoyed talking to him, that's for sure. So it should have been on my mind as well that he's the perfect guest to have on to chat about the late, great Lou Holtz. So that worked out great. I hope folks enjoyed it. Also want to thank Russo Radio, who joined at 4 with the latest trade steam. And as you mentioned, Brett Blakemore, it's sounding more and more from Russo's reporting and what he told us that it may be more surprising that the Wild make a deal than the other way, that he thinks on a couple players the price might be too high, and that Guerin's not going to necessarily just gonna blink. We have until, I think, we'll know by showtime tomorrow, because the trade deadline is 2:00 Central. So we'll know by then. The good stuff from Russo today.
Also, side note, Molly Walker, an NHL reporter for the Rangers, and hearing Vincent Trocheck will not play tonight for the Rangers roster management. So maybe he's already
the plot
gone
thickens.
somewhere else.
It could be someplace else. Or here. Who knows if they lower the price? Who's to say? Mitch Lawrence, always good to catch up with him on NBA matters between 4:30 and 5 o'clock. He had a lot of fans very, very, very bitter. Do we have time? We have another request for the Hermantown sound. Is there enough time to do that?
Now let's head to the X for a high school hockey tournament update.
Well, let me make sure he's there. Hang on.
I thought he was there. Oh, he's not even ready yet? Zach, are you there yet? Did you find him?
I found him.
That's outstanding.
Hey, Zach, you there?
Sorry about that. Yeah, I was just in the press conference for Bruce Pland after their 6-5 victory over St. Cloud Cathedral, and they're obviously pretty happy. A heck of a hockey game, the second of 2 great games here at the X thus far. It sets up a Class A championship game tomorrow between Hermantown and Monticello Annandale Maple Lake. So, Guardsy, Barreiro, it's going to be a
Why don't you catch your breath?
Yeah,
why don't you head to Trio?
Zach, are you all right?
I literally sprinted across the El Sabre press box.
Is there a medic at the XL Energy Center? Trio
great,
Orthopedic
so-
Center.
All right, we'll take over from here, and we'll get
Catch
back
your
to you a
breath.
little bit later. You catch your breath. We don't want,
I think I'm ready.
You think you're
I think
ready
I got
now? You think you
Yes,
can?
I think so.
All right, well then.
You got a
hold
couple
on, if
of-
you're not,
by the way, I
don't.
got an echo in my ear. If you could take that out.
He's got an echo, is what he's going. Abbott. It's Abbott's fault that he's got an echo, probably.
Probably.
It never gets old. And this is the week to play it into the ground. So I'm sure we'll play it a couple more times tomorrow as well, right?
Hermantown.
There it is. It's as good as it gets. So action on the AA side continues on our sister station, correct? The
That's
Plus?
correct. Yeah, featuring Halverson.
Exactly.
So yes, KFAN Plus 96.7. You can hear the game going on right now.
It's one of the great moves that, again, doing a lot of thanking of Chad Abbott today, but he deserves it. One of the great moves he's made, right, is us carving out this niche, as we say in the business, to make the state of hockey on the high school level available to you on the radio. I've never understood why it wasn't more automatic. So that's the place to get all of it. Tomorrow is going to be, I think, is shaping up to be a pretty good show as well. I'm assuming Gessling will join tomorrow because I do want to talk to him about the Kyler Murray steam. Also, Lavelle on everything. And how about the return of Robert Smith to the program, former Vikings running back? He is scheduled for 3:30 tomorrow. He's kind of gotten in on the quarterback discussion and gotten squashed via X because he seemed to be celebrating the notion that Kyler Murray might be coming to Minnesota. So we'll get to the bottom of that as well. So tonight is what? Fan on Demand on the air?
Fan on Demand, 15 minutes leading into Wolves pregame, Wolves Raptors.
Wolves Raptors, and once again, Anthony Edwards has been upgraded to in after being questionable earlier in the day. Just make sure you post everything. That's all I ask.
Yeah. I'll get right
You
on.
seem like you're in a battle via the text line on that. Yeah. Don't do what I do. Don't get into these battles. It's not worth it. Thanks for watching. Thank you for listening, and we will talk to you tomorrow beginning at 3 o'clock right here on The Fan.